It's time to experience the O on the Original Sports Podcast. Here's your host, Mark Maradei.
Hey, welcome everyone to Original Sports Podcast with Mark Maradei. Of course, I got my crew here tonight, and I got a special guest from TopOff Sports. I'm going to let you guys go ahead around. I'm going to start with my special guest introducing himself first, and then we'll get started on the show. Go ahead, Mikey.
Hey guys, my name is Mike Icenhower. Like Maradei said, I'm with TopOff Sports. It's a podcast that me and some of my friends that met in college do. Just a little bit of background. I've coached at college level, Division II, Division III primarily, top tier high schools in the country like Good Counsel, which for some of you who might not be in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area is in Olney, Maryland. I think that's about it though.
Thanks, Mikey. Go ahead, Sizzle.
He says, what's up, everybody? Looking forward to today's draft review.
The Thrill.
What's going on? I'm Will. Glad to be back, and I'm excited for the show today.
Yeah, let's get after this. 2021 draft. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm going to get into overall impressions of the draft, but I'm going to be the big mouth that goes first. As I feel like since I'm running the show here, I want to get this off my chest right away. I absolutely loved last year's draft, man. I thought the 2020 draft was compelling. It was. It got to you. They explained who some of these guys are and what their backgrounds were and what they came from and how hard they worked to get to the point that they were drafted by an NFL team and what their aspirations were. I enjoyed the draft. I watched the first round. Well, I watched hockey, of course, because it's hockey season as well. But I watched the first round. I watched bits and pieces of the second and third round. Paid very close attention to the fourth round. I thought there were a lot of interesting guys still sitting on the board. And I thought there were a lot of interesting guys sitting on the board once everything had come and gone. But I got to tell you, my overall impression, it was just normal for the most part. I liked it better in 2020. Go ahead, Will. What your overall impression of the draft?
I thought it was great to see fans back. I thought that was cool. Having it was pretty packed there in Cleveland. I thought that was pretty interesting. I thought they definitely dragged on the first round, tried to make it like everyone's back. But 2020 was interesting. You definitely got a real feel of everyone's home and you got to know more about the players. This year is kind of they talked a lot more just about the top guys.
Yeah. Sis?
Yeah, I think the NFL does a great job marketing. They keep everybody in tune. They wheel out Goodell's chair from his basement. They let the fans sit in the thing. I would have, my inner sister OCD would have kicked in. I would have been like, I am not sitting in that chair. I'll stand beside it. I'll shake hands, but I'm not sitting in that thing. He had the blanket wrapped around him. I'm like, I'm not touching that. But yeah, they did a great job. And what was impressive, all those first rounders coming out, they were so humble. And, it was sincere and honest. I like that. Goodell was welcoming the boos. He was trying to get the fans involved. I thought day one was really good. I liked hearing the next days, a couple of days where you had fans, and DMC just lit it up for me. He was awesome. He rocked whatever he introduced, the Steelers pick.
Mikey, what were your impressions of the draft? I mean, as a Packer fan?
Yeah, so one thing that I've gotten really big into is over at TopOff, we do our own mock drafts. I know you guys do them too. So I always love picking the Packers because the last 3 years I've mocked a wide receiver to them. Over the last 3 years, they haven't taken a wide receiver in the first round, even though it's been their biggest need. So this year I did have them taking a corner. I didn't have them taking Eric Stokes, which was a surprise. I think it'll be good. But overall, it was awesome. I've gotten bored with the ESPN stuff, so I've been watching the Pat McAfee show and their draft day coverage, and I think what Pat does over there on YouTube is awesome. So that was really my biggest takeaway, was how entertaining Pat's able to make it. And I could care less about the commissioner.
Yeah. It was so Cleveland-like too. I mean, they booed the Steelers when they came out. They booed Franco freaking Harris. Who booed Franco Harris? Okay. The man's about as humble as it gets just because he played on the 70s Steelers. And then their macho man character, like, what was he out there to prove? I mean, like, come on, dude. Okay, we get it. Whatever. I needed to move on from that. That was my break time when he came out there and was doing his thing. But how was your surprise? Let's go back the other way. Start with you, Mikey. Who was your surprise first-round pick? Who was the reach guy maybe that was taken that you were kind of like, I don't know?
I think a lot of people are going to say Alex Leatherwood. But I actually think it's the guy that the Saints took, Peyton.
Turner.
What's his last name? Peyton Turner. Yeah. I think PFF had him ranked as like the 60th best player, and you take him at 28. And I think it was a bit of a reach. Remember, Alex Leatherwood was a top tier lineman entering the season. So Peyton Turner, there were other edge guys on the board, and I don't see why that was my biggest thing. I thought that the Saints really messed up on that one, in my opinion.
Will, who do you think was a reach out there?
I think the Jaguars' second pick, they picked ETN. I really don't think they needed it. They have James Robinson, who did really well his rookie year. And I saw like they really did it kind of for Trevor Lawrence and having his college running back instead of like getting someone who they kind of needed instead.
I didn't like the fact that 3 different teams matched up players from their college days. You can't recreate what you did in college at the professional level. The game is at a whole nother octave in terms of how fast it's played, how much more perfection is implemented by defenses and defensive coordinators. I was kind of like, when Cincinnati, instead of addressing the need of protecting Joe Burrow, they went after Chase. And I was like, oh, really? For me, that was a sizzle.
There's so many. We're looking for the gem in the pile here. I think, I don't know, there's a lot. I like that mentioned Leatherwood by Mikey. That was a good one. I like Kwity Paye. I like what he has to offer, but I saw, his size and just his quickness might not stand up immediately. He might not make a huge impact at the edge there for the Colts. I don't know if he's going to come off the ball, doing what they expect him to do. He stood out as maybe a reach for them. I didn't think that they would go that route right away, but he was someone who stood out.
I had 2 different guys. I had the second pick by the Ravens. Odafe Oweh from Penn State. They drafted him to be an edge rusher. He had 0 sacks at Penn State last year. He had nothing. And I was listening to somebody talk about him, and they said, this guy's going to be a project if he even pans out, just because he has the raw ability and he came from Penn State, linebacker U. And my other guy was the guy, Jalen Phillips from Miami. So everybody can give me that eyebrow raise, but this guy's perpetually hurt. He's perpetually hurt. And down the road, I'm going to tell you why I question him as a pick over top of this other guy who was actually chosen. He's going to be my Mr. Irrelevant. But those were my 2 guys. Edge rusher and linebacker can be a difficult position, especially on the outside. Injury, you got to have your A game, be completely healthy. You cannot hobble through a season injured. So let's move on. Let's go. Teams that help themselves the most. I don't know. Well, let's go. You could give me up to 3 teams. Sizzle, who do you think helped themselves on this draft?
I think helping Herbert out in Los Angeles, the Chargers did a great job mixing up offense and defense, but initially picking, someone up, a couple guys up on that line to help protect him. He had a phenomenal rookie year, and I think it just makes sense. Support and protect your number one. I think teams like Carolina, Minnesota, Dallas, they had 11 picks overall. That helped them out. Cowboys did a great job with 6. Their first 6 picks were defense. So they're putting a lot of stock in Dak coming back and Zeke helping out that offense. They're planning on them being ready to go. I think 8 total defensive picks. They're riding the board with that. But yeah, those teams I think stood out to me.
Mikey, who helped themselves in this draft?
Yeah, I like that Vikings mention. The Vikings, I definitely think, helped themselves a lot. I think the Jaguars helped themselves. I think, obviously, when you get the number 1 overall pick and you take someone who's projected to be the best quarterback since Andrew Luck, who was projected to be the best since Peyton Manning, when you get a quarterback of that caliber, that's going to help you out quite a bit. But then Walker Little in the 2nd round, and maybe reaching for Etienne a little bit, but I've heard comparisons of Etienne to Barry Sanders, not putting that on the kid. But when you're able to get a running back like that, maybe you do take him in the 1st round.
I don't know if he's as complete of a package outside of Clemson as he was for a Clemson team playing it at the level that team as a whole played. Can Etienne take that team on his back and lead them with the help of Trevor Lawrence like he did at Clemson? I mean, they had so many weapons. And I know we could say that about Najee Harris too, but I don't know. There's a drop off from Najee Harris down to the second few guys. And I actually personally, I like Javonte Williams better than I like Etienne, but that's me.
Yeah. And I think that, I think those concerns are valid, but when you get a guy like Urban Meyer, who's able to work with that and hopefully put together a college offense, that's the closest you're going to get to emulating what they've done at Clemson.
Right. Will, who helped themselves?
I think first Miami, they were able to get Jalen Waddle, which they desperately needed another target for Tua to throw to. And I feel like they were able to get some help on the line. They got 2 offensive linemen. And I also think the Bears picking Justin Fields, getting their hopefully quarterback of the future was huge for them. They were able to get a couple of other picks, but I mean, them trading up was something many people didn't think they would do. And if they were able to do that and he's able to be some guy who plays for like 10 years, I think it would help the Bears a lot because they have a pretty solid defense.
Yeah. Hey, my 3, Kansas City helped themselves. Nick Bolton on the inside. My God, that guy's a monster out of Missouri at linebacker. And Creed Humphrey, like, if you're a Steeler fan, that had to be the guy you wanted, not Landon Dickerson, who is another guy who has a perpetual history of injury, although he's great. And if he stays healthy, he's going to be amazing for Philadelphia. But, I think that Kansas City, definitely think the Jets did a lot of good things. They came out of the gates. They grabbed Zach Wilson. Then they grabbed Vera Tucker to help protect him, which I thought was a fantastic move by them, getting a guard on the inside. Then they got somebody for him to throw to with Elijah Moore. And of course, they grabbed Michael Carter, the running back out of North Carolina, who was part of that 1-2 combo with Javonte Williams. I think they had a phenomenal draft to help that team going forward. And I think Robert Saleh will do a nice job with the character of that team. And I think that's really what they miss more than anything, is somebody who's going to develop the character on that team. And then somebody said about Chicago, I think, Will, you said about Chicago, I wasn't a big Fields fan for the longest time. And then I started doing some really deep research on him. He could just be the guy coming out of this draft in terms of quarterbacks. I mean, he has to be able to help. He has to be able to help Chicago more than what they have right now. I mean,
there's only one direction for that team, right? Hopefully it's up.
Well, they were doing really well last year. And then because of quarterback play with Trubisky and who else is there? The kid from what's his name?
Nick Foles.
Nick Foles. Yes. They went back and forth between those two. They really didn't get anywhere. It was like running in quicksand. But you're right. And then they went out and they got Tevin Jenkins at the offensive tackle. I mean, he questionably is the best guy in the draft in terms of offensive tackle. So those were my three: KC, the Jets, and Chicago. How about teams that did nothing, essentially, in your eyes, did nothing to improve their draft status? For me, I got two glaring ones. I didn't think Atlanta did much. Yeah, Kyle Pitts. Yeah, he's a stud, but is he going to be able to block? Are they going to have any kind of running game with Pitts in there? That's a question mark to me. And then Detroit. I know the history of Penny Sewell, right? We all know he was supposed to be the big man, but in my opinion, missing 2020, and you're going to hear me repeat myself. Those of you listening, you're going to hear me repeat myself. Missing 2020 to a certain degree is going to set guys back a little bit. It really is. And if you've ever played sports and had to be away from it for a period of time, it takes time to get back into it. And the game moves so quickly, it could pass you by, to be honest with you. And that was my two teams. I was like, Atlanta and Detroit. Okay, whatever. Go ahead, Sizzle.
I think the Texans, they stood out as just having a terrible draft for me. I know that they were addressing the QB issue by picking up Mills from Stanford, but I didn't think they got much. Well, they're keeping their fingers crossed with that, but they only had 5 picks in the draft, which was interesting. And then to me, San Fran, I didn't think they really did much. I know they got Lance. I know people are high on him. My concern with him, he only played 19 games, and that's at the college level. And they're expecting him to come in. I mean, who knows? We may never see, because we don't know who's going to be live on Sunday, right?
Right.
But
Right.
I don't see him, again, coming out of the gates and taking over the reins and doing something there. So I don't think San Fran really did a whole lot to help themselves.
Mikey, who didn't help themselves?
The number one team I had that didn't do any favors for themselves was the Seahawks. I mean, they only had 3 picks. Granted, they got a lot of guys. Jamal Adams with your first round pick, essentially. That's a good pick.
Yeah.
But they took a receiver from Central Michigan. Maybe I'm out of the loop, but I've never heard of the guy. And I think that there were other guys that you could have gotten that would help your team a bit more. Pete Carroll's, he's a good coach. I'm sure he'll be able to work with what they got him, but
Yeah.
I didn't see much from him.
Yeah. Will, your
think
head scratchers.
for me, the Saints, they needed like wide receiver help after they lost Emmanuel Sanders. They needed like another guy in there. They also needed a cornerback, and they kind of waited on both the positions and they reached on their first pick. And I feel like they really didn't do much like help in their like post Drew Brees era.
How about the Rams, you guys? Their first pick was a dude that weighs 150 pounds and Tutu Atwell. I mean, holy cow. What, I was kind of shocked at what they did. I don't know. I like their core, but I'm not sure if they went the right direction.
Well, their other 2 wide receivers are kind of fit that mold also.
Yeah. I mean, the West actually didn't. I thought Arizona, well, we'll come back to that. But, I do think the West out there in the NFC is pretty potent to a certain degree. I mean, they have some fight in that dog. I like Trey Lance. And I think Trey Lance needs to sit a year. But I'm not sure Garoppolo's going to be there for him to sit behind. I'm still curious.
Like him, but that's a concern.
I'm still curious, Mikey, if I doubt they'll do this, but will the Packers move on from Aaron Rodgers? Will they put him on? I can't see it happening. That would be insane, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's difficult to move on from Aaron. Obviously, you've got a guy who just won the MVP. Yes, he's an aging quarterback, but we see what Brady's able to do. Rodgers has been able to take care of himself throughout his career for the most part. But I think what the Packers' game plan is Jordan Love's not the guy. They know Jordan Love's not the guy. If you trade Rodgers, and they because of the cap hit, but if you trade Rodgers after, I think it's June 3rd or something, right? When it doesn't count against the cap hit for this year.
Yeah.
If you trade him after that, you should be okay. You'll be able to get like a Sam Howell next year or a Spencer Rattler. Not that I'm high on Spencer at all, but maybe
Slovis.
that's the direction that they're going to go.
I like Slovis coming out next year.
Out
too.
of USC, right?
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Caden Slovis. So it'll be interesting to see what the Pack decides to do there. I again, it's no secret I'm a Steeler fan, and a lot of people lost their minds when Pittsburgh really didn't go get themselves defensive back help. But there are plenty of high-end defensive backs that will be released after June 3rd. And just like they did with Hayden, they'll go out and find themselves somebody. That's what the good organizations do. There's a reason the Steelers have not had a losing season in 15, 17 years, okay? I know they're not going anywhere in the playoffs under the current coaching staff, but there's a reason that they continue to churn out winning seasons. Can't miss first rounder. I'm going to give you mine first because I think I may not be a big fan of his personally, but I think he's a can't miss guy. It's Micah Parsons. I think he's going to plug right in. He's going to replace a former Penn Stater there, and was it Shawn Lee? And he is going to keep chugging right along. I mean, the dude had a monstrous pro day, and he is a freak. I just think they'll plug him right in Dallas, and he is going to be a can't-miss guy for the next 10, 12 years at least.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm going to stay on the defensive side of the ball, and not just because he had the best necklace coming out of the draft with the PS controller. Patrick Surtain, the set, is going to do great for Denver.
Yeah. Mikey, who'd you have as a can't-miss guy?
I'll be the first one to go on offense. Jalen Waddle, I think. I mean, obviously we could go easy and say Trevor Lawrence. I think if we all know he's one of the best quarterbacks to come out. But Jalen Waddle, I think, has potential. His ceiling could be Tyreek Hill. And anytime you're able to get a guy that's that agile, that fast, and add him to an offense, it's difficult. You can't coach speed, right, Coach? So
say that again. You can't coach speed? No, you can't. I just had a conversation the other day with another buddy of mine, and I said, if you look across all professional sports, if you look across all college sports, if you look across all high school sports, the teams that are fastest and most athletic are the winning teams. You can be really athletic and really strong and still not win. But if you're faster than everybody and they can't catch you, you're going to win. You're going to win.
I see what you guys are saying, but do you think they're going to win in Miami? I don't know if they have that caliber of an offense like they do in Kansas City to put the numbers up and to get some W's.
I did question them not getting a running back that was going to come in and make a difference.
Right.
I thought Najee Harris might go to them. I'll stick by what I said. I think Jaden Phillips is a kind of a reach, with an injury history year in and year out. That's, Will, who's your can't miss?
I'm going to stick with receiver, but I think it was the Eagles with Devontae Smith. I think Heisman winner last year. I think him with Jalen Hurts, I think he could actually, he's really small, but I really don't think, like you said, speed. Like, if you're fast, you can get by anyone, especially, with the new rules. He can't hit across, he could be really dangerous in the NFL.
Those guys it's funny because you got those guys in Philly, the two guys we talked about in Miami, and then we've got the guys that we just talked about in Jacksonville, who essentially those guys right there that we're talking about have all played together in college. That's the trend that I was talking about. I don't necessarily know if you can emulate anything other than the fact that you have familiarity. because everything is different at the next level, guys. Everything is different at the next level. And you can ask any of these guys, how many guys come out of college and they have just super high-end ceiling and they never make it. But yet you have a guy like the guy from Central Michigan. Well, can you name another receiver that came out of Central Michigan that he was on a collision course for the Hall of Fame and fell apart?
I'm good. Thanks. Let's move on.
I mean, you just don't know. You just don't know.
Yeah, but I don't think you're going to get another Antonio Brown. Guys like that are special. Antonio Brown has he's just special. And I think the same thing applies to Jalen Waddle. Right? I mean, whatever.
Hey, listen, I don't know if you've ever taken the time to find the article and read it in Sports Illustrated about Antonio Brown, but there's a really good article that talks about how his level of talent from the time he was a young kid was superior to almost everybody he faced, but he had some mental health issues. He had them from the time he was a young kid. And I think it was his stepbrother who really sang about it. And he was really rough on his family. And that's why he didn't get himself, the guy was in Florida, a standout. Guys usually don't leave Florida that are standouts. And nobody wanted to take a flyer on him because of his mental health. And you're right, you usually don't find that. How many years do you think Coach Mike Tomlin kept that under wraps, all the craziness that Antonio Brown brought to the table week in, day in, year out, you name it. So, all right, let's go ahead and talk about a steal of the draft. Who got lucky out there and found somebody in this draft and they are going to be a difference maker? And it's not that first rounder that's a can't miss guy. Who's going to be that difference maker? And it doesn't have to be your Mr. Irrelevant, because that Mr. Irrelevant should be at the end of this round. Some of those guys dropped out of there and they're going to be motivated and they're going to want to make a name for themselves. Who do you guys think is going to be that guy?
Looking at this, I was looking at last year's draft, the 2020 rookies. The third rounders played more than the first and second rounders. So I was thinking about that. That was really interesting to me. And for this year, I think we talked about the Chargers helping themselves out the most offensively, protecting Herbert, but also on the defensive side, they picked up an edge rusher to complement Bosa. And I think that will be really supportive for him. Chris Ruff out of Duke. He was actually predicted to be a number one, a first round, projected to be first round. He slid obviously a little bit to the fourth because of not being able to help out with the run support. So developing that in the NFL will be, his biggest hurdle. But I think he will be able to complement Bosa on that side of the ball.
Will, who's your skill?
For me, it was the Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah from Notre Dame. I was surprised he just kept slipping down the draft board, and I thought he was going to go middle of the first round, and he kept slipping. Some of his highlights, he was a really good college player. Thought he was going to go in the first round. Was kind of hoping he'd drop to Pittsburgh, but didn't. But I think that he was probably still a draft.
Mikey, you're still.
Yeah, I had Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah as well. I don't think there's a bigger steal than him. His versatility on the defensive side. I mean, I think he reminds me a lot of Isaiah Simmons, who went 8th overall last year, right, to the Arizona Cardinals. So I had the Notre Dame linebacker mocked at, I believe it was 15 to the Raiders, where they took a tackle. So when you get that guy in the second round and you're the Cleveland Browns and you've got a playoff team, the Cleveland Browns are a playoff team. And when you're able to add a piece like that, it just puts them over the edge. That's really going to help them out over the next year or two.
Interesting. My guy was former Pitt defensive tackle who opted out this year and hurt himself, in my opinion, Jalen Twyman. He was on a crash. He was on a collision course to break Aaron Donald's sack record at Pitt. Like 2 years ago when he played, he was unblockable. And I was just, I honestly was shocked that he opted out. He probably was a big part of the reason that Pitt team did not do better than what it was projected to do. In Minnesota, I feel, got a steal in him. Was he third or fourth round to Minnesota? I mean, I was kind of like, wow, they really strengthened themselves late. So that was my guy. All right, so let's go.
Just
go ahead.
Real quick, just touching on that. We talked to over on TopOff, we interviewed a guy who's like a D-line specialist in the Eastern Panhandle of West Virginia named Gordon Cohagen. That was his guy. He was really big on Twyman. So I'll go with you right there too, Maradei. That's a good one.
Yeah, it shocked me. It really shocked me. Did you know that Pitt was in the top 7 teams to put guys in the NFL this year? The top 7 guys, they had 6 guys get drafted, and then they had 4 guys go undrafted free agent. For such a crappy program, I had to do a little research, but it jumped off the page at me when I saw they had 6 guys. Because, you expected Alabama, you expected Clemson, you expected those programs. Penn State also had 6 guys, and look at the year that they had. They didn't really have anything what they started out 0-4, right? Penn State was 0-4 to start the season. And they had that overtime loss to Indiana, and they kind of spiraled and then sucked it up. And
that just goes to show, though, what we've talked about before on this show. If you're good, you're going to be found.
Right.
Like we say in high school, like we say in the college, if you're good, you're going to be found. And
right.
Yeah, that helps to be on a winning team. But because you're going to get more recognition and notoriety. But if you're good, you'll be found. And it doesn't matter what school you're at, Western Michigan or Central Michigan, right?
That's why I always have a problem with when I see kids bouncing from high school to high school. Yep. It's a little bit better today than what it was years ago. But I know when Mikey was in high school, I know there were a lot of kids bouncing more. Now this porthole in the NCAA is opened up and these guys are bouncing for greener pastures. Man, just make a name. Put your feet in the ground and make a name for yourself. If you got a beef with the coach or the coach leaves, okay, whatever. But if you're bouncing to go play somewhere else because you think it's going to put you on the map, suck it up, Buttercup. I don't buy into that.
Yeah, and I mean the ultimate story of that this year in the draft has to be Quinn Myers, right?
Yeah.
Wisconsin Whitewater guard. He was taken, was it the 3rd round?
I think he went 3rd or 4th. I think he
was
went
taken
3rd or
by
4th.
the Browns or the 4th.
He went to Denver, correct?
Yeah, I mean, and he's a guy who really climbed up big boards. Yeah, to Denver.
He was Division III, Whitewater, Wisconsin Whitewater. So, you'll be fine.
So I mean, anytime you're able to D3.
I mean, how many times you hear guys, making it like that? You hear it almost every year. My Mr. Irrelevant is going to go way back to when we were talking about who my reach pick was. And my reach pick, and I promised you guys I would reflect back to him, is the Phillips kid from Miami. My Mr. Irrelevant's a guy that the Steelers grabbed, Quincy Roche. Check this out. He had a highly productive college career. He led Temple. He had 13 sacks at Temple in 2019. Then I believe he went on to Miami. Didn't quite do as good because he's playing behind Rousseau and Phillips. But, man, he's going to be a stud. I can see him being a future star in the NFL. I think he slipped and slid his way through, and Pittsburgh knew they needed depth, and they kept an eye on him, and bam, he was sitting there for them to take late. That's my Mr. Irrelevant. Sizzle, let's hear who your Mr. Irrelevant was.
Oh gosh, you're talking about finding that Brady in a haystack, right? Who would have ever thought? Did you guys see the pictures of Brady though when he was drafted? He looked like an out of shape me right now, or when I was 20. Yeah, I mean
he looked like Will. No, I'm playing Will.
He looked like a 45-year-old man back then. But there's so many people, it's hard to tell. I think that linebacker going to the Patriots. he might be a steal. Michigan, Cameron McGrone.
Yeah.
I think he'll fit into Belichick's system nicely, and he'll be able to use him right away.
Mikey, Mr. Relevant.
Yeah, I've got Hamza Nasir Ladine, safety out of Florida State, I believe. And I think a lot of it has to do with where you land. He ended up with Robert Saleh up there in New York. What he's going to be able to do with him, the secondary that he's had in San Francisco in the past, that defense in general, he's going to be a guy who I think can step in day one and really leave a mark on this team in an unexpected way.
Yeah. I got you. Will?
My Mr. Relevant was Sam Ellinger from Texas. He played really well in 2019, going to the Colts. I thought if he would have went to the draft, there was talks that he was like up there with like the Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, and then 2020 didn't have a great year. But I think if the Carson Wentz experience doesn't go great with the Colts, I think he could step in there and if he can replicate what he did in 2019, he's pretty decent.
Yeah, that's interesting choice for your Mr. Relevant. How about this, guys? Glaring guys who you think are going to be a flop. Okay, and I'm going to put it out there for you right away, just because I have two guys who think he's going to be a stud. Owosu Karamoa. I think he's out of position. I think he's a little light in the ass. I think he's going to end up trying to play safety. I mean, he's not going to be able to compete with those quick twitch guys at the safety position. I think they're going to struggle with finding a spot for him. I don't think he's not a spectacular athlete. It has nothing to do with him going to Cleveland at all. But I just think they're going to struggle with finding a spot for him on the field that makes him most productive. I could be wrong. I have no problem going back and admitting it. But I listened and I read and I looked at his film and I'm like, man, I don't know. So go ahead, Will. Who's your flop or flopped?
This might not be a popular opinion, but I don't think Mac Jones is going to be great in the NFL. I know Bill Belichick with Tom Brady worked out well, but I mean, Mac Jones had all the weapons possible in college. He had 2 top 10 receivers in this year's draft. I just think he had a bunch of talent around him. I think he's all right, but I think when he has to play against NFL talent, I think he's not going to be as great.
I'll buy that. I don't know if I'd have traded way up there to grab him. Mikey, who's your flop?
Yeah, I was going to say Mac Jones as well. The big thing that he has going for him is he's a smart quarterback. But just to keep it sort of mixed, I had Greg Newsome. Greg Newsome going to Cleveland. I don't think that it's a good fit. I think Greedy Williams is a more talented player, and I don't see it. I don't see the need. I think that Greedy Williams has more talent, and I don't know. Just something about it rubbed me the wrong way, and it's kind of one of those gut feelings. That's hard to.
And that's why I say about Owosu Karamoa. There's something about it. I don't know. And you know what, man, I'm going to be flat out honest with you. I can hand you a group of guys, and if you're a great coach, you can figure out what you need to do and put those guys in the right position to make them productive. But if you don't have a guy that fits the system and you try to fit them into a system, that's when failure happens. Mikey, looks like you want to respond to that. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. Coaching, I think, is almost like a puzzle. You don't necessarily have a lot of guys say, let me put the best 11 players on the field.
Yeah.
But sometimes those best 11 players don't work that well together. So whether you're an offensive coach or a defensive coach, you have to find guys that fit your scheme, which now you're kind of talking me out of the Newsome thing because I'm arguing that the talent of Greedy Williams is so much better. But I'm going to stick by it and say Greedy Williams is a great man-to-man corner. He has the things that you can't coach, right? We talk about speed. And if you're not able to coach a guy like that and develop the skills that you can teach him and put him in a position to be successful, why do I think you're going to be able to do with the guy?
Giving us a little bit of we lost you a little bit there, but I get the picture, man. It's the speed thing, and it's a matter of development. That's the bottom line. That's why I had to fire that comment off, because I've seen too many times. I've seen a lot of guys being in the realm of coaching for years. I've seen a lot of guys refuse to get out of the system they have, even though they have really talented players that they could develop if they just make tweaks and adjustments. And I think that's where you see a lot of the failure happen with college guys, with professional guys. And I know, professionally speaking, a lot of those guys, they have a certain system that they bring in there, but once they get a guy into camp and they start looking at a guy on their team, it changes the way that guy actually is evaluated. Yeah, the pro day, yeah, the combine, I get all that stuff, but it's not always like that once they put on the pads and get out there and start playing for you. So it makes it a little more interesting. Hey, who had an impactful trade? Whether it was moving up, moving down, getting people, or letting people go. Who had an impactful trade, Sizzle? Anybody?
I don't know if it was as impactful as it was confusing. We talked about this also. You don't do anything to help out your opponents. What in the world were Cowboys trading up to Philadelphia so that they can get up there and make high? I was like, what are they? I was just so baffled by that. I don't know about anybody else, but there are a lot of trades up and stuff like that. And then obviously the biggest trade everyone's talking about is Chicago trading up to get Fields. So that's the impact that they're looking at.
Well, who was like, oh man, what are they doing here?
I was gonna go with that trade too. I thought the Cowboys were gonna. I don't know what they were thinking, but I mean, I think they were just trying to mess up. I don't think they wanted the Giants to get him, and I mean, I think they were just like, would they rather get a pick or have the Giants get him? So they kind of went with the pick and then gave the Eagles to Devontae Smith.
Mikey, any individual player trades that made you, see a balance change in the league in this draft, or leading into the draft?
Yeah, I think one that I think a team really won. I'll take a little bit of a different approach to this question than you guys, but the Vikings and Jets trade. Obviously, the Jets jump up there. They get Elijah Vera-Tucker. I had the Vikings taking him, but they end up with Christian Darrisaw, who I think is an even better pick.
Yeah.
Darrisaw came in as a true freshman in Virginia Tech a few years ago and absolutely killed it from day one.
Yep, absolutely.
Not only that, out of that trade, they also got Wyatt Davis, who I had as a top 3 guard. So you're able to get Wyatt Davis, bolster that offensive line even more, and then Kellen Mond, who, I mean, in my opinion, he gives me Dak Prescott vibes of what he's going to be able to accomplish in the league as a ceiling. Obviously, if everything goes right, but I think that the Vikings really won that trade.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Hey, you guys, I have no freaking clue why you would want to make the best team better, but that's what the Ravens did. The Ravens sent Orlando Brown Jr. over to Kansas City. What the hell are you thinking? And now they're going to sign a guy from Pittsburgh and El Villanueva, who, let me just tell you, if you have not watched El Villanueva play the last few years, he can't run block, and he absolutely cannot stop the best defensive pass rusher coming off the edge anymore. And I love El Villanueva. God bless him. I salute him. He's a consummate professional in the whole 9 yards. But what are you thinking trading Orlando to Kansas City? Oh my God. I was like, are you serious? Are you that freaking dumb that you would do that? And then they didn't really address it. And they actually, guys, they still haven't addressed it because they have not signed Villanueva. And the reason they haven't signed Villanueva is if they waited till after the draft and a certain date that they don't have to give up, that the Steelers won't get a compensatory pick if they don't sign him till after a certain date or something I read. So that just blew my mind. In that Bears trade, a 1 and a 3 to get Fields. I'm so indifferent about it, but I think Fields is actually going to be. I kind of changed my mind on him. He's not a typical Ohio State quarterback, not in the least bit. He's a tough kid. He's a marketable kid. He did bounce though. He bounced from one program to another, and that always sends up a red flag to me. I got to be honest with you. Again, it's just like sitting out a season. That moving that green grass on the other side. Although he won a national championship as the quarterback, and but that's where I was with all that in terms of trades. All right. So the last piece, instead of all these highly rated and scrutinized quarterbacks, you had Lawrence, you had Fields, you had come on, help me, men. You had Zach Wilson. We had Trey Lance. We had Kyle Trask, who actually went in the second round at the Tampa Bay Bucks, which I don't understand that one, but I do. I'll be honest with you. I don't, but I do understand that one. You've got Kellen Mond. You've got Davis Mills. You've got some guys there.
No.
When we talk about this in 3 years from now, who are going to be the top 3 quarterbacks that are still, that you're going to say, yeah, those 3 guys came out of that draft in 2021, and yeah.
This is the draft QB class that I think we're talking compare, depending on how they do, you're right. But comparing to the 1983 draft with Elway, Kelly, Eason, Marino, O'Brien, right? That was highly sought after guys there.
So we're flipping the script on who's going to be the next faces of the league, so to speak.
Possibly, yeah, absolutely. And if all all goes well for these guys, I think that they'll be they're obviously the faces of the franchise right now.
Yeah,
for who they are. I don't know the order, but I'm just going to say I think Mac Jones will be the best right now because he's in a system where he's not going to start right away. I predict maybe by week 5. I don't know. Because they'll have Cam Newton on a short leash. He's aging, and let's just turn it over and see what Jones got. And he's in a system where he's not going to have to carry the load, take the bulk of the work, and put the team on his back right away. I think Zach Wilson will have to do that, but I think he might be a little bit better. Like Will said, Jones, doesn't have a lot of accoutrements like some of these other guys do, getting out of the pocket, running. He's smart, but I think then Lawrence would be my third. So Jones, Wilson, and then Lawrence.
Mikey, who's your top 3 years from now out of this draft?
Yeah, so I think that this draft is going to be, obviously I'm a little younger guy. I wasn't around in 83. So I didn't have the pleasure of watching those guys.
With that beard, I never would have guessed.
I'm saying that you guys have a bit more wisdom than me, so maybe people shouldn't listen to me on this one.
There it is.
No, but I think more recent, you could compare it to the 2018 class, right? 5 quarterbacks taken in the first round. 2 of them turned out to not be any good at all, right? I mean, Sam Darnold, he didn't live up to it. And then Josh Rosen, he definitely didn't live up to it, right? There's still hope for Darnold, but Josh Rosen, there's not much hope left. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be my number 1 3 years from now. After that, I think it's going to be Trey Lance. He's going to a team that's primed to win a Super Bowl right away. And if he's able to be any better than Jimmy Garoppolo was, they will win one. That defense, when healthy, is one of the best defenses in the league.
Yeah, no question.
So those are my two. And then I think Zach Wilson, because Wilson is the ideal quarterback, in my opinion, for the Kyle Shanahan system. And that's exactly what they're going to run in New York. Robert Saleh brought over their like pass game coordinator or their co-offensive coordinator, whatever title he had. And that's what they're going to run. So I think that it's going to shake out in that order. And I think it's going to be a lot closer between Trey Lance and Zach Wilson than a lot of people expect.
Interesting. Will, who you got it shaking out to be?
I got Trevor Lawrence on top. I think someone said earlier, it's like he was getting like comparisons to Peyton Manning and like being like one of the greatest of the generation. And then I'm going to go Justin Fields. I feel like he could be like a Lamar Jackson type. And with that Bears defense, I think that if he maybe sits this year or comes in halfway this year and then is able to like get a couple years under him, I feel like the Bears could be pretty good. And I have Zach Wilson. I think he will take some time to get like used to like the pro level. Playing at BYU, he didn't get to play a whole lot of big talent, so I think it'll take him a while. But I think when he gets going, I think he'll be pretty good.
I'm going to be like a couple of you guys, and I'm going to go with Trevor Lawrence. I mean, he just everything's there. The guy never lost a regular season game in his life. So the first game he loses in regular season with Jacksonville is going to be the first regular season game he has ever lost.
I think he did lose to Pitt. I think Pitt beat him in the regular season one.
That's right. That was he. Did he play that game?
I think he played that game.
Okay. All right. So that's it. That Pitt game. But then I'm going to go Mac. And I'll tell you why I'm going to go Mac. I watched what Belichick did this offseason. He put his offensive line together, right? He revitalized his offensive line. He's getting the tackle back that sat out last year, and he revitalized. And then he went and got himself a couple tight ends. Besides a good running game, who's the biggest and most important helper for a quarterback who's young? And that's a tight end. Let's get the ball in the tight end's hands. Let's go short, boom, hit him with the ball, let him ramble. I mean, that's what made Brady. Let's face it, man. That's what made Brady's career, having Gronkowski, essentially. Okay, so that's why I like Jones there. Plus, their defense will put them in better position. They've got guys coming back. Patrick Chung's coming back next year. I'm a little bit afraid of what the Patriots are going to look like next year, to be honest with you. But I honestly don't see Mac Jones playing next year. I don't. I think they'll ride Cam unless it's a freaking complete train wreck. And then finally, I do like the Trey Lance. I do think he is going to be the guy in San Francisco. He can throw the ball well. I know he only has 19 games under his belt, but he throws the ball better than Lamar Jackson. Justin Fields throws the ball better than Lamar Jackson. Ravens fans, you can hate me all you want, but you see the same thing I see week in and week out. You can give that guy as many weapons as you want, but he's a running quarterback. When you have to factor in your run game, 250 carries a season for your quarterback, that tells me a couple of things. Number one, you don't have a lot of confidence in him throwing the ball 30 times and leading your team to victory that week, no matter how much they take your run game away. And that's kind of scary to me. So so those are my three. And that's not a knock on Lamar Jackson. I hope people understand that. I think he's a fantastic young kid. I think he's a tremendous athlete, but his main targets are his tight ends. And I think Trey Lance will go beyond just his tight end, who in fact, he does have one of the best tight ends in the game, doesn't he?
Yep.
So,
just touching real quick on the Mac Jones, Trey Lance sort of thing. Everyone's sort of complaining or worried about Trey Lance only playing 19 games. Mac Jones only played a year too. He played 4 games. He couldn't beat out Tua at Alabama. And I don't think any of us have really been impressed with what Tua did last year. So I'm not, long story short, I'm not concerned about the 19 games, however many games those two quarterbacks played. But what makes you guys more sold on Mac Jones than Trey Lance, for those of you who are?
Well, I think the system he's going to. I think, and what I mentioned, he's not going to have to carry the team as much as someone like Lance would. That's my perspective.
I don't think Lance is going to have to carry the team out of the gates, because unless they get the right taker for Garoppolo, I think Garoppolo will have every opportunity to win that job right out of the gates. I just don't, unless somebody and here's the other thing you've got to keep in mind. A lot of these guys are not going to have on-field action right out of the gates. A lot of these teams are canceling their OTAs, their mini camps and everything. They're doing it all virtual. A lot of the teams have already proclaimed that. More than half of the teams have already proclaimed that.
Well, what about Wilson and Fields? Probably will. Don't you think?
What, start right out of the gates? Well, they don't have a choice in New York.
Right.
I mean, they don't have a choice in New York. Chicago does have a choice. They still have Foles on the roster. They still have Trubisky on the roster, unless they cut one of them loose.
They don't have Trubisky.
Oh, Trubisky got
But
moved?
they've got Dalton. They've got Dalton.
They have
Oh, that's
Dalton.
right. Andy Dalton. Where'd Trubisky go? I forgot about that.
The Buffalo
Buffalo.
Bills.
Okay. So, I mean, I'd be happy to have Dalton start for me. He's not going to kill you. He'd be a great kid for Fields to learn underneath. Andy Dalton was a consummate professional in Cincinnati when they drafted Burrows. He didn't ask to be traded. He didn't ask to be cut loose. They did that on their own, and he went down to Dallas and was backing up Dak.
Well, he got lit up too.
Yeah, yeah.
That was tough.
But that I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting. I just I'm always very skeptical of a running style quarterback as opposed to a guy who can get yardage by running because he needs to. Does that make sense?
Yep.
I was listening to some national reporters talk about how San Francisco keeps flip-flopping. They just keep going back and forth. Kaepernick was a running style quarterback. Then they go to Garoppolo. Now they're going back to maybe Trey Lance, who's more of he's got wheels, but he seems to be more of a complete package. So I'm interested in seeing
they have different coaches, different systems throughout those transitional periods, right? So
right. It was Shanahan. Really, I think everybody had him pinpointed. I think he was using Mac Jones as a smokescreen. To be honest with you, when he went down there, they were all down there. They kept saying Mac Jones to San Francisco. I think that was a smokescreen, and I think a lot of people saw through it in the end.
Yeah, and I mean, just sort of touching on that too, I don't think Mac Jones was ever on the board for them, to be honest. Shanahan has a great relationship with the quarterback trainer who's worked with Trey Lance. And you guys know in this business, 90% of it's who you know, not what you know. And I think it's like that in every business. So having trust in that guy who's trained Lance and worked with him, you're going to trust what he has to say. And like it or not, that goes into your evaluation process.
I can tell you that Coach Brian Fleury, who I had on the show back last summer, told me one of the main reasons he loves being part of the San Francisco 49ers staff is what Shanahan looks for in developing his organization from a head coaching standpoint. And that is that trust, that family environment, that, hey, look, we want to be able to feel together as one here. We want to be able to trust each other. We want to be able to lean on each other to be successful. I mean, that was a big part of the reason they made that run to the Super Bowl a couple years ago. And then they were hurt a lot last year. So, that kind of took that off the table for them. But, that's an excellent point you made there, Mikey. That's an excellent point. Man, the last piece in terms of the draft that I want to do is just a little bit different than what most people do. A lot of people like to grade the draft. They like to grade it by round. They like to grade it as a whole per team. I've seen teams all over the board. I've seen teams that I scratch my head at get an A or a B plus. I've seen teams that I think, wow, they really took care of themselves and helped their needs, given failing grades. But I want to do it like this. I want you to take a look at the AFC and the NFC as a whole and evaluate it from 1 to 4, which division in each one of those conferences, how they drafted. So, for example, for myself, with the AFC, I think the East had the best draft. The Jets, New England, Miami, Buffalo, I think they really helped themselves, did fantastic. I think the North, with Cleveland having a solid draft, with the Ravens having a solid draft, and I believe the Steelers really addressed a lot of needs. I think even Cincinnati, I think the biggest thing with Cincinnati was the fact that they didn't draft a lineman to protect Burrow right out of the gates. But I still think the North is second. The third team, the West, I felt was third. And then obviously the South. I know Jacksonville ran away with it, but I didn't feel like Houston did anything to really make themselves stand out. I think Indy strengthened themselves a little bit more on that D line, but they didn't do anything that was so consequential. So that's what I want you guys to do. Give me your AFC division rankings by draft. Go ahead, Sizzle. Go, you start.
All right. I have the North. So basically flip-flop there a little bit. The North, I think they did a great job. AFC North with the Ravens, Browns, Steelers. They did really well. And then the Bengals coming in last there. I would say the East also, it's like 1A, 1B. I think both of those divisions did really well. I think the West did a little better than the South. The Chargers did really well. The South, like you said, Jacksonville helped themselves out. But I would rank them fourth in the East, AFC.
Will, who do you have? Rank them out for me in the AFC.
I was going between the North and the East, but I feel like the North had, every team had, they filled needs. I feel like the East was second. They were close. And then I had the West and the South. The West was above the South. The South, Houston's just dumpster fire. They're not going anywhere. And I feel like they just did the least to help them out.
Mikey, rank those divisions in the AFC conference.
Yeah, I think I'm going to continue the trend here. I think that the AFC North did really well, answered a lot of needs for each team. Like you said, the Steelers did need-based drafting throughout the entire thing. Then I'm going to have to follow up with the East. Mac Jones, the Dolphins getting Waddle. Those were some sort of highlights of that. The West and the Chargers are carrying them. They had an amazing draft. It's hard not to put them at 2. And then the South. And Houston is really dragging them down because they didn't pick until day 3.
Yeah,
almost.
Yep. Mikey, since you're up and you're running, give me your NFC. Rank the NFC teams, divisions.
I might be a little partial, but I think that the North did really well. The Vikings had an amazing draft. I think they had, in my opinion, a top 5 draft. So I'll start with the North. It's tough. The East, I think, did really well. It's hard not to do well when you're picking 3 straight picks in a row because you're so bad, right? They had the 10th, 11th, and 12th overall picks. Yeah. So they were pretty high up there. But they did well with those picks at least.
And they just trade each other.
Yeah, except when they trade with each other. But then I'm going to have to go with the West. And then the South, the Saints didn't have a good draft. The Falcons, I think Justin Fields should have gone 4 because I don't know how long Matt Ryan has, but Kyle Pitts was a lot of people's best player in the draft. So,
yeah. Go ahead, Will. Let's go backward. You're up.
I think the NFC East probably had the best draft. I feel like you said, they all had pretty high picks. So, but I feel like they filled needs, especially the Eagles, the Cowboys. The Cowboys definitely on defense. They filled their defense. I think next, the NFC North. I think the Vikings definitely had a great draft. Lions got some needs. The Bears, I think Justin Fields was a huge pickup. And then I'm going to go the NFC South. I know it wasn't a great draft, but I think the NFC North, the only people I think did a great job drafting NFC North or the NFC West was the 49ers getting Trey Lance. I feel like Seattle didn't have many picks. LA Rams didn't have many picks. So it was the pretty basic draft for the NFC West.
Stiz?
Yeah. What's that?
Your thoughts.
Hey, I forgot to ask. Are we grading them on the MCPS grading policy? They get 50%, right?
Well, they don't have 50%.
Oh my goodness.
if they didn't turn in their work.
Yeah, no, they still get 50%, right? But I'm going to go with the East. Definitely the Cowboys, Redskins, Washington football team. Did you see the guy who announced their
Yep.
pick? He almost
Monty Coleman.
he almost stumbled. That's got to be so hard for those guys,
Yep.
who play for them. But anyway, East. Let's go with the East, and the North would be second for me. Same reasons. Minnesota, they had like a slew of picks. 11 or 12 we mentioned, and the Bears. I thought the West did okay, a little bit better, and then the South just they stunk it up.
Yeah. I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to say number 4, the South. I'm going to say number 3, the West. But I tell you what, it's like a number 3, kind of a tie with number 2 with the North. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm taking into consideration not only what San Francisco did to improve their team. I know what Seattle did. I get what the Rams did. But I'm also taking into consideration how dangerous I think Arizona is going to be as a team. They got some guys down, man. They picked up A.J. Green. They grabbed J.J. Watt for pennies. They're going to be a little bit different. And they were already in a hunt at 8-8 last year. They could have easily been a 10-16. So they're my number 2B. My number 2A is the North. And I definitely think the East probably, they probably won out just because they had so many high-end picks. I really thought the Redskins did a good thing by drafting a linebacker. You can tell Rivera is making an impact on that team. I don't know if I would have sold out Dwayne Haskins as quickly as he did, but also I think getting him out of the DC area may save that kid's career, whether it's with Pittsburgh or somebody else. I think that's going to save his career because he is a talent. There's no question about it. He's a talent. He could be the reason the Steelers don't even think about getting another quarterback. We'll find that out going forward. But that's the way I did it. I did it from 4-1 with a 2B and a 2A team. All right. So the next segment, wait just a minute. Something that happened in sports this week that made you question sports. And I'm going to start this off, and then we're going to go to Sizzle and Mikey and Will. Okay?
Let's do it.
My wait just a minute is this. What the hell is Major League Baseball thinking by trying to pull that no-hitter from Madison Bumgarner when they set it up so the doubleheaders are 7 innings? Don't do that to the man. The man pitched 7 innings of a complete game. That's what you told him he had to pitch, 7 innings. If he needed to pitch 9 innings, you should have told the guy, you got to pitch 9 innings. But they told him 7 innings. He pitched it. He got a no-hitter, so shut the hell up, Major League Baseball, and credit that man with a no-hitter. So that's my what the hell went on in sports this week.
This one's for Yager, Dogger. 49 years old. Come on. 49.
Unbelievable.
Old. He's played 24 years in the NHL. Yes, Jaromir Jagr I'm talking about. 18 years old, he broke onto the scene with the Pittsburgh Penguins. I remember going down to the point, watching him. He could barely speak English, saying Elvis has just left the building. He started out as a teenager for this team called the Kladno Knights in Czech. And he bought the team. And just last week, he had an assist. I'm close to 49. I get out of bed, I'm sore. I can't imagine him playing top caliber ice hockey and skating around and doing what he's done. So hats off to Jaromir Jagr, 49. God bless him.
Yeah,
All
I think mine has to be that Tom Brady has been in the NFL longer than Trey Lance has been alive.
Oh shit.
And that's insane to me. Brady was drafted, I believe it was April 16th of 2000, and Trey Lance was born May 9th of 2000. And there's a chance that they could play each other in playoffs this year.
Brady's a trip, man. Did you see him dressed up yesterday at the Kentucky Derby? He's a trip, that dude. He really is. I've grown to really like him as a person. Not necessarily.
Somebody said he looked like he was out there to arrest Roger Rabbit.
I saw that, yeah. All right, Will, give it to us. What the hell happened in
Oh,
sports this week?
I was watching Sports Center this morning, and last night in the NBA, the Indiana Pacers beat the Memphis Grizzlies by 57 points. They scored 152 points, and the Grizzlies scored 95, and it was the largest home loss by a team in NBA history.
That might explain why I don't watch the NBA very much, because it's just throw it up from anywhere and score. Wow, 57 points.
57.
They were
Wow.
leading at 67. They were leading by 67 at one point. They eased up. They let them score a couple buckets. They only make it 57.
All right. Our final segment, men, before I send you about your way from this week's broadcast. And, it's been a lot of fun having Mikey here, to be quite honest with you. You're like a grown man compared to when I coached you. The final segment, it can be a shocking draft fact, but I'm going to give you a different shocking fact. I had one. I had Mario Williams was taken number 1 overall in 2006 over, get this, Reggie Bush and Vince Williams. Mario Williams, he was a garbage pick for Houston. But here's the shocking fact I'm going to give you. Yesterday, 41-year-old Michael Vick. Yes, Michael Vick of dogfighting fame, but spectacular running quarterback who could throw the ball about 65 yards on the run, full speed, ran a 4.79 40 at 41 years old. Let that sink in for a second. A 4.79 at 41. 4.79. All right, give it to me, man. What do you got?
Who's up?
You.
Me.
Yeah, tell us.
So the most shocking fact, draft fact, we're talking draft fact, is, we watched the whole first round, second round. I love watching it, but the honeydew list is building up. I got to do things around the house. The shocking fact to me is my 13-year-old daughter is telling me who the Steelers are picking. Dad, you're going to, hey, come on, hurry up. I'm mowing the grass. I'm weeding. I'm doing all this stuff around the house. And she's telling me what's going on in the draft. I'm asking her who people are picking. And then there's my 2 boys. They're like not even have anything to do with it. But it's my 13-year-old daughter. Shocking draft fact for me.
Hey, who's her godfather?
I don't know. Oh, you.
I wonder. Go ahead. I'm going to save you for last, Mikey. Hit us, Thrill. What do you got?
Something I saw today is no QB drafted in the first round between 2009 and 2016 is still on their current team.
Wow. That's insane. That's definitely insane.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. I'm gonna have to exit out of this Zoom call in order to read this. So I might go off screen for a second. But this is a fact that I think is worth it. From 1947 to 1958, the NFL added a bonus selection, which basically operated like a lottery pick, like the NBA does, for the number 1 overall selection. After that bonus pick, the draft was run just like it is today. Worst team picks first, best team picks last, and they keep cycling through. This continued for about 12 years. And after that 12-year period, everyone had a bonus selection. And then it went back to the way it is today.
Sounds like parity to me. Creating parity. They're giving you an extra stud on your team if you're a lousy team.
Well, yeah, but it was a random selection. So it was like they put all their names into a hat or something and drew it out.
Oh.
Yeah, so it could be like this year if the Tampa Bay Buccaneers got it. No one would like that. We wouldn't call that parity, right?
No.
If they were able to replace Brady with Trevor Lawrence.
We already know that New England would have got that bonus every year to begin with. So good thing they don't do that anymore. Good thing. Hey, who's going to have the number 1 pick next year, Mikey?
Ooh, that's so tough because we haven't seen these teams out there playing yet.
Oh, I can tell you who it's going to be.
Jacksonville.
I don't know. I think that Jacksonville, I can tell you it won't be the Jets because I thought that the Jets had a pretty good team last year and that they would be able to do something. I think adding Robert Saleh to that team makes it even that much better. If you put a gun to my head today and told me that I had to do it, I would tell you that it has to be the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Wow.
This is his
No,
last.
I'm just saying that to rile you up, Coach.
You never know.
Yeah, if something happens to Big Ben, and as much as I think that Dwayne Haskins is going to be special at some point in his career, it could be. I'll go with the Detroit Lions, though. I think that's actually they'll probably have the first pick. That'll be my answer.
Will, who's going to have the number 1 pick?
I think it's a no doubter for me. I think it's going to be the Houston Texans. I don't think this Sean Watson.
So
I don't think he's gonna play this year. I think they're done. They're gonna be the first overall.
Who you got, Sis? Same thing?
I'm going to say the Green Bay Packers just because it's Mikey's team. I was going to say the Texans also.
Yeah. How about the Maulers, baby?
Mike Rozier.
Yeah. Hey, Mikey, thank you. Tell us your show again. Tell us how we can listen to you, social media. Tell us a little bit about your show. Come on.
Yeah, so we have TopOff Sports. It's a bar-themed podcast. Basically, our tagline sort of is bringing the sports bar to your car without the DUI. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, really anywhere you listen to podcasts. Podbean actually puts us all over the place, and we don't even know where we're at sometimes. So yeah, social media, Instagram at TopOff Sports, Twitter at TopOff Sports, Facebook, search TopOff Sports. You'll find us there. We have a website, topoffsports.wordpress.com. We post a lot of articles there. We actually, throughout the draft, we were updating pick by pick on like our top players as to where they were going. So we have a great writing team over at TopOff that's able to do that for us. So give us a Google search and you'll find us everywhere we are.
Hey, thanks for joining us, man. I really appreciate it. Terri, Will, it was great having you on for another BS Crew breakdown of the draft this year. Hey, you can find us all over the place. We have a website, OriginalSportsPodcast.com. On there, we've been blogging like crazy about what's going on in the world of sports. And we're just not talking about football. We're talking about all sports because we're priming up here now for the NBA and NHL playoffs. Baseball starting to kind of take it up another notch with the weather getting warm and minor leagues starting up. I want to thank you guys, and then I want to thank our audio engineer, Shawn Antkowiak, our video engineer, Angela Antkowiak, our music by Ryan Benton and Preston Harper, our voice intro by Matt Noble, our social media guy, Will Franciscus, our webmaster, Terri Maradei. So, hey, join us next time on the O, where you can experience the O in the Original Sports Podcast.
A story of heroes and warriors who played for the glory. We are about to see it in your stadium chair. We know all your teams and we can go on for days. It's game time from the original. Highlights and playoffs and very special guests. It's game time on the original Sportscast show by the best.